the midnight feast of Princess Isolde. Relax now. Breathe slowly, deeply. Let the weight of the day melt away. Imagine yourself stepping softly into a world of candlelight and stone, where echoes are gentle and shadows dance like whispers upon the walls. Our story today begins in a castle. Not grand and bustling with noise, but quiet, hushed, and serene beneath the soft cloak of midnight. The moon rides high above the turrets, casting silver beams across the courtyard. The guards at their posts shift from foot to foot, their armor catching glimmers of light, like tiny stars scattered across the earth. They are weary from long days of training, of keeping the realm safe, of braving the cold wind that sweep across the hills. And within the castle, in the warm glow of a great hall, a princess named Isolde stirs. Princess Isolde is not the kind of princess who waits for feasts to be prepared for her. On this night, she has chosen something special, something of her own heart. She has chosen to prepare a feast for others. A feast not for lords, not for noble guests, not for ceremony or show, but for the castle's guards, the quiet watchers of the night. The hall is still, save for the faint crackle of the hearth. Tall candles stand in iron sconces, their flames trembling as though they too wish to be part of this secret midnight gathering. Upon the heavy oak table, a linen cloth is spread, soft, worn, white as frost. And on it, the princess begins to place her offerings. A wooden platter of honey cakes, round and golden, still warm from the castle ovens. A jug of warm spiced milk, its steam carrying the fragrance of cinnamon and cloves. Bowls of roasted nuts, salted just enough to bring out their sweetness. And from the larder, thick slices of brown bread, still holding the scent of the baker's hearth. As she moves, the hem of her gown whispers against the stone floor. Her braid falls loosely over her shoulder, a glimmer of candlelight caught in every strand. She is not dressed in jewels or crowns tonight. No, tonight she wears only a simple woolen dress, soft and comfortable, like the garments of any village maiden. She wishes not to dazzle, but to comfort. Perhaps they will smile, she whispers to herself, arranging the goblets one by one. Her voice is soft, almost as if she speaks to the hall itself. Perhaps they will forget their weariness, if only for a while. The crackle of the fire answers her, sending sparks drifting gently upward. From the shadows of the corridor, the first of the guards enters. Sir Ulrich, tall and broad with eyes like dark oak wood. He looks surprised to see the princess awake, and even more surprised to see the feast spread before her. "Your Highness," he murmurs, bowing low. "What is this?" Isolde smiles, lifting a small plate toward him. "It is a feast for you, for all of you who guard these walls when the rest of us dream. Sit, Sir Ulrich. Tonight, the castle belongs to its keepers." Slowly, almost hesitantly, he sits, and soon others follow, the guards slipping quietly from their posts, one by one, as though guided by some unseen hand. Their heavy boots thud gently against the stones, their armor clinks like distant wind chimes. And before long, the hall that was once empty now hums with a gentle murmur of the voices. The princess moves among them, pouring warm spiced milk into goblets, setting honey cakes upon wooden plates. She listens as they speak of the night's patrol, of the cold air upon the battlements, of the fox they glimpse slinking near the henhouse. She laughs softly at their stories, her voice carrying like a bell through the hall. And in that laughter, the guards forget their fatigue. They eat, they drink, and they remember what it feels like to be cared for. Not as warriors, not as watchmen, but as men. The night grows richer with warmth. The candles burn low, dripping wax like tears of light. The hearth glows deep and red, casting shadows that stretch and sway, like dancers upon the walls. And outside, though the winds continue to sweep across the hills, the castle feels safe, wrapped in its cocoon of fellowship. Yet, there is more to this night than food and fire. For within the silence between their words, within the silver hush of midnight itself, something stirs. A story, old as stone, older perhaps than the castle itself. For this was not the first midnight feast to be held within these walls. Long ago, it is said, a princess of another age once did the same, and in her kindness she wove a blessing that lingered ever after, a blessing that each feast, no matter how small, might call forth. But whether Princess Isolde knows this or not, remains to be seen. The hall glowed softer now, as though the very stones leaned closer to listen. The guards sat scattered about the long oak table, their faces dappled with the gold of candlelight. Some had removed their helmets, setting them down beside their plates, and their hair, damp with the night mist, curled gently against their foreheads. Others still wore their mail, the faint shimmer of iron catching sparks from the hearth. Princess Isolde moved between them like a quiet song, her hands graceful as she filled goblets, offered bread, or set a gentle hand upon a weary shoulder. She listened. Oh, how she listened! Leaning in close when Sir Alric spoke of the stars above the ramparts, or when young Gareth described the fox that had stolen into the henhouse. At times she laughed softly, and the sound rippled through the hall like warm water poured into stillness. The men, unused to such company, spoke in hushed tones, their voices softened by reverence. They did not wish to break the spell of this night. And then, Sir Cedric, the eldest among them, cleared his throat. His voice was like gravel, worn with years of shouting commands across training fields. "Your Highness," he said slowly, his hands resting on the table's edge. "Forgive an old man's curiosity, but this feast, it is not common. What called you to it, tonight of all nights?" Isolde paused, setting down the jug of milk. Her eyes lifted to the flames. For a long moment, the crackle of the fire was the only answer. At last, she spoke. Her voice was soft, like the settling of ash. "Because I see you," she said. "I see the weight upon your shoulders, the nights you spend in the cold, the silence you keep when others are dreaming. The realm owes you thanks, yet too often, thanks is not given. So tonight, I wish to give what I could." The hall was quiet. Some of the guards bowed their heads, ashamed of the sudden warmth in their eyes. Others looked upon her as if seeing her for the first time, not as a princess to be guarded, but as a soul who cared for theirs. And then Sir Cedric chuckled. It was a low, rumbling sound, like a kettle beginning to boil. "There was another," he said, nodding toward the stone walls around them. "Long before your birth, princess. Long before mine. A tale of a midnight feast, much like this one." The younger guards leaned forward, curious. "They say," Cedric continued, "that in the reign of Queen Adeline, her daughter, Princess Eleanor, set a table much as you have done tonight. Bread, honey, warm milk. She called the guards in from the cold, sat among them, and ate as one of them. And the tale goes, that night, the castle was wrapped in such peace, not even the fiercest storm could shake its stones. A hush fell over the table. Even the fire seemed to soften its crackle, as though listening. Since then," Cedric added, his eyes gleaming in the candlelight, "they say that each time a princess shares such a feast at midnight, the blessing returns. The walls hold stronger, the hearts grow braver. The castle itself breathes easier." Isolde tilted her head, intrigued. "Do you believe it?" she asked, her voice a mere whisper. The old knight smiled faintly. "I believe what I feel tonight, Your Highness, and that is enough." The words settled like warm wool about their shoulders. A comfort, a mystery, a gift. The gods began to speak again, their voices livelier now. Stories of training mishaps, of festivals past, of dreams they held quietly in their hearts. One admitted he longed to see the sea, though he had never left the hills. Another confessed he hoped to wed the baker's daughter, if only courage would guide his tongue. Isolde listened, her eyes shining. She asked gentle questions, encouraging them, coaxing forth dreams they had long buried beneath duty. The feast was no longer only food, it was a weaving of voices, of hearts, of lives bound together in warmth. And outside, though unseen, the wind slowed its howl. The moon glowed brighter, steady and watchful. The castle, some would later swear, seemed to sigh, a deep, satisfied breath, as though soothed by the kindness unfolding within its walls. At the far end of the table, young Gareth set down his goblet and leaned closer to Sir Alric. "Do you feel it?" he whispered. "Feel what?" Alric murmured back. "The whole," Gareth said, eyes wide. "It feels different, as though it listens." Alric frowned, then glanced about. The air was indeed heavier, but not with weight, with comfort. A thickness of warmth, of safety. It wrapped around them, like a cloak drawn snug on a winter night. And when Isolde returned to her seat, the gods raised their goblets together in a soft, quiet toast. Not a toast shouted with bravado, but one whispered with gratitude. "To our princess," Sir Cedric intoned, "and to this night." The goblets clinked, faint and musical. The sound hung in the air long after, shimmering like a charm. Isolde smiled, her heart swelling. She did not know if the legend was true, but in that moment, as she watched her weary guards soften into laughter, into ease, into brotherhood, she did not need to know, for the blessing was already here. The candles had burned lower, their flames shorter now, glowing like little stars caught in glass. The plates were nearly empty, crumbs of honey cakes, drips of milk, the faint sweetness still in the air. The fire in the hearth crackled softly, embers falling like glowing petals. Princess Isolde leaned back in her chair, her long braids slipping gently over her shoulder. And for the first time all night, she allowed herself to rest. She gazed around at the guards. Their shoulders were no longer heavy, their brows no longer furrowed. They looked like men, not just soldiers, men who had found comfort in a moment of peace. And then, the sound came, soft, distant. A hum, almost like the tone of a bell, but gentler, as if carried on the stone itself. The guards lifted their heads, puzzled. Some glanced toward the windows, others toward the door. But Isolde heard it most clearly. She closed her eyes, and it seemed to come not from outside, but from within the very walls of the castle. A vibration, steady and warm, like the heartbeat of a giant asleep beneath the earth. Sir Cedric's old eyes widened. "The blessing," he whispered. His hand trembled slightly on the table. "The walls. They remember." The hum lingered, weaving through the hall. It mingled with the glow of the fire, with the quiet laughter still lingering in the air, with the peace that had settled over every heart. No one spoke louder than a murmur. Some bowed their heads, others simply closed their eyes, breathing it in. For a long while, time itself seemed to pause. And then, as gently as it had come, the sound faded. The air grew still again, but in its absence, a hush of wonder remained. Isolde rose to her feet. She did not command silence, nor attention, but every eye turned to her nonetheless. "My friends," she said softly, "tonight we shared not only food, but our hearts. And if this castle truly holds memory, then let it remember this night too. Not as a story of walls and stones, but as a story of kindness, of warmth, and of strength, given back to those who give so much. The guards rose as one. Their boots upon the stone floor did not echo with the clatter of soldiers, but with the reverence of brothers. Sir Cedric bowed, deeply, his voice steady though his eyes glistened. This hall will never forget you, princess. Nor will we. One by one, the guards took their leave, returning to the towers, the gates, the stables, each carrying within them a glow they could not name, and though the night was cold, none of them felt the chill. At last, when the hall was quiet again, Isolde lingered by the hearth. She traced her fingers along the wooden table, still warm from their touch. She closed her eyes, and in the silence, she thought she heard it again. That faint hum, like a heartbeat, like a lullaby, reminding her that she was not alone. The princess drew her cloak about her shoulders and whispered, almost to herself, "May every feast be blessed, may every heart be seen, and may this castle always breathe peace." The fire sighed low, embers settling, shadows stretching long across the stone floor. Outside, the moon drifted higher, silvering the turrets, the courtyard, the sleeping earth. And somewhere deep within those walls, unseen, unheard except by those who had felt it, the castle smiled. And so, dear listener, the chapter of the midnight feast of Princess Isolde comes to a gentle close. A story not of battles or crowns, but of kindness shared, of hearts lightened, of a night that lived on in stone and memory. Now, as you drift away, let the warmth of the hearth, the taste of honey and the hum of the castle guide you softly into rest. Safe, calm and deeply, deeply at peace.